The Oklahoma Sooners have one of those good problems heading into this year's spring game.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome to Locked On Sooners, and thank you for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. We're free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube, so hit that subscribe button and that notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. Today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. I admit it, I have a competitive side, and it is a big fan of Monopoly Go, the mobile hit twist on classic Monopoly. So join your friends and download Monopoly Go, now free on the App Store or Google Play. And heading into this year's spring game, the Oklahoma Sooners have created for themselves a pretty good problem, if you ask me. If you go over to OU Insider at Rivals and check out their scholarship breakdown, the Oklahoma Sooners are sitting over the scholarship limit right now at 91. That would lead you to believe that by fall camp, the Oklahoma Sooners are going to have some attrition somewhere on the roster, especially as they pursue defensive tackle targets that we talked about in yesterday's episode, center prospects that we're going to talk about here in a little bit. But the Oklahoma Sooners have a situation where you look at the 91 guys that are on scholarship, and it's hard to pinpoint who could be gone by the time we get to fall camp. It's hard to exactly know which part of the depth chart is going to have some attrition, because the depth chart's looking pretty good. Is it young? Is it inexperienced a little bit? Absolutely. But there's a ton of dudes in that scholarship breakdown that have a lot of potential. I mean, you can go quarterback, running back, wide receiver, offensive line, defensive line, linebacker, cornerback, safety. I mean, it doesn't matter where you look. There's not exactly 6 names that you could say, hey, these guys, I mean, obviously they're out of here. Because you've even a guy, maybe like a Devon Sears, who didn't get really to play a ton last year. He's received positive reviews this fall camp. A guy like JJ Hester, somebody who really hasn't factored into the wide receiver rotation, received rave reviews from your starting quarterback, Jackson Arnold. So again, you come back to looking at this breakdown, and are we at a point where the Oklahoma Sooners now have pretty good depth? It's possible. Now, again, a lot of the depth that we're talking about, it's pretty young, freshmen, sophomores. You don't have a ton of upperclassmen that you're going to be relying upon in 2024. Obviously, you're going to have a number of guys, especially on the defensive side of the ball, like a Woody Washington, Danny Stutzman, Billy Bowman, Dejon Terry is another one. Ethan Downs is another one. But a lot of the dudes that are going to be a part of the 2 deep going into the 2024 season, they're sophomores, they're freshmen. You can look at defensive tackle in particular. You got Grayson Halton, who's been around for a couple of years, but hadn't really played a lot. And then you got Jaden Jackson, David Stone. I mean, you got Ashton Sanders, Marcus Strong. Those are 4 young guys that will at some point be a part of the defensive tackle rotation this year, next year, year beyond. And so I think what we're seeing is Brent Venables and his staff are putting together a depth chart that's not going to be heavily reliant on the transfer portal in the future. It's not going to have a ton of turnover from year to year. The further we get away from the Lincoln Riley era and the Lincoln Riley core of players. Now, I know, yes, Danny Stutzman, Billy Bowman, those guys were Lincoln Riley guys. But the further we get away from it, I think we're going to see far less turnover. The Sooners have done a tremendous job trying to create an environment that's going to have better retention. And yes, you're going to see some guys go to the portal. That's just the inevitability of the transfer portal in this day and age in college football. But I think what we're also going to see is guys that are willing to trust the process. If you'd have asked any number of Oklahoma analysts, media members, what they would have thought of Jaden Gibson a year ago, I think most people would have projected him to be a portal entry at some point this offseason, because the wide receiver depth was improving around him. We hadn't really seen a breakout yet from him, But then fast forward through 2023, has a really good, strong season as a rotational player, fourth, fifth wide receiver. And then in spring ball this offseason, I mean, he might be your best wide receiver that's been available, maybe next to Deion Burks. I mean, Deion Burks has blown everybody away. Again, talk about guys who've had that steady drumbeat of production and productive practices, and everybody's raving about him. Deion Burks is one of those guys, but Jaden Gibson, I mean, he's showing up in almost every single highlight film that OU football puts out because of his athleticism, his ability to go up and make big time catches over defenders and win those 50-50 balls that Jackson Arnold's going to throw. Jackson Arnold is going to throw some 50-50 balls and rely upon his wide receivers to go make plays. And so what we're seeing is, okay, a 4-star freshman wide receiver that came in the 2022 signing class, didn't really play a ton as a true freshman, played a little bit, and it was kind of underwhelming, as it can happen to be for a lot of true freshmen. And then as a sophomore, or in his second year with the Sooners, Jaden Gibson had a really good year. Again, 14 catches, averaged 26 yards per reception, 5 touchdowns. And now he looks like he's going to continue to ascend and may even start for Oklahoma come the fall. But it's that kind of a situation. And I highlight Jaden Gibson to say this: players are trusting the process, especially Brent Venables guys. Again, you're going to have a guy here or there, but you would think that somebody with Jaden Gibson's skill set could start for any number of teams across the country. And I think you could say that for several guys on this roster. They could go somewhere and they can get starter snaps and be productive players. But what Jaden Gibson and what a number of other people and players are at least buying into is the culture at Oklahoma, the holistic pursuit of excellence, not just on the football field, but in the classroom, in their personal lives, in their, the way that they spend their time, not just developing them for maybe an NFL future, but developing them for life. There's that culture, that bond, that familial bond that everybody seems to come away from every time they go and visit Oklahoma. Recruits, transfer portal prospects, coaches that go and visit always talk about the energy and the vibe that they get from spending time with Brent Venables and his staff. It's the sole mission, players raving about that. So it's exciting to see that this staff has developed a depth chart and developed a roster at this point that's bought into the process. You talk about it. Another one we can mention, Grayson Halton, is another one of those guys that, didn't play a ton his first 2 years in Norman, but now looks like a guy that could break out in 2024 and be an important part of your defensive tackle rotation with his quickness, his athleticism. He could be a game-changing pass rusher for you on the inside. And you need somebody like that to step up and be a part of that. But in this era of kind of instant gratification, I want to play early, I want to get on the field early, you're seeing guys get discouraged and leaving a spot that might have been the best spot for them had they given it 2-3 years time and developed and worked on their craft and bought into the process. They might be sticking around. Cormani McClain is kind of one of those situations. The former number 1 cornerback, I believe in the 2023 recruiting class, spends 1 year in Boulder with Deion Sanders and the Colorado Buffaloes, and he bounces. Who knows if it's just a bad personality fit, but what we do know is it didn't work out. Well, what we're seeing at Oklahoma is it's working out, that guys want to stick around and they want to stay and they want to be a part of the process. So why is it a good problem that Oklahoma has all this depth? Well, you have a lot more talent to work with. But why is it a problem? Well, you're also trying to figure out how to fit a couple defensive tackle prospects in the transfer portal onto your roster. You're looking at offensive line help at center in particular this transfer portal season too. So the depth that Oklahoma's developed going into the spring game. Now we may see a little bit of attrition after the spring game, but again, there's no obvious candidates to be like, yep, this guy's going to be gone. This guy's going to be gone. That guy, he's heading out, because all the guys that, especially at wide receiver, at safety, corner, all the guys are either young and developing, or they're guys that you could use this year to make an impact on the field for you in 2024. So you're not necessarily pushing anybody out the door. You're going to need all these guys, especially as the playoff expands. And there's a potential for upward of 15, 16 games in a college football season now because of the expanded college football playoff. There's a chance that you could play a ton of games and you're going to need as much depth as you could possibly get. So Oklahoma's got this good problem, man. They got great depth, but it's also figuring out how to manage the roster and how to get some of these talented players like a Dominic Williams out of TCU or a Jermaine Lowell out of Louisville, a couple of defensive tackle prospects that, could have an impact for you in 2024. How do you fit them on the roster when you're already 6 scholarships over the limit right now? That's going to be fascinating to watch how Brent Venables, his staff, go through managing the roster and figuring out how to put the best football team on the field as possible with this really good depth that they're developing. And I think it's going to continue to look even better and better as the years go on and we continue to see top 10 recruiting class after top 10 recruiting class. The Sooners are looking for some center help in the transfer portal. We've known this for a bit, but there's a couple guys that are on their radar. One's going to be in Norman this weekend for the spring game. The other one just kind of came onto their radar on Thursday. We'll talk about it coming up next here on Locked On Sooners. I've been told I'm a competitive person. Well, yeah, I have a competitive side. We all do. And my competitive side is a big fan of Monopoly Go. I'm sure you've heard of it. It's been downloaded over 150 million times. It's a great twist on Monopoly where you play not on one, but hundreds of Monopoly boards in crazy locations, building up amazing cities that bring you big money. But the best part, it's messing with my friends. I can charge them rent on my iconic properties, just like classic Monopoly, but now I can also heist their vaults for riches for myself. And the leaderboards show me who the biggest Monopoly tycoon is, but it's not just my competitive side that loves it. You can team up with friends and people all around the world in time tournaments to earn huge rewards. So get in the game and join your friends. Download Monopoly Go now free on the App Store or on Google Play. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. The NFL mock draft on Locked On is available now. Find the ultimate 6-episode series on Locked On NFL Draft to hear who the local experts of Locked On are picking for every NFL franchise, with live reactions from local college football experts and even the fantasy football angle. The Locked On NFL mock draft available now on Locked On NFL Draft on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. So the Oklahoma Sooners are in the process of courting several prospects in the transfer portal, defensive linemen, offensive linemen. We already know that they will be hosting Jermaine Lowell. They will also be hosting Dominic Williams, 2 defensive tackle prospects this weekend for the spring game. We believed that they were going to be hosting Philip Blighty, but he went on social media on Thursday and said, hey, plans changed, not going to be in Norman this weekend. And that could be due to a Dominic Williams move or a Jermaine Lowell move, or there's a new UCLA defensive tackle prospect that's in the portal too that might have garnered some interest from the Sooners. And Blighty said, hey, I'm going to look for an opportunity elsewhere, or maybe they told him to look for an opportunity elsewhere. Who knows what the conversation was like on that front. But at the center position, we know center is a bit of a mystery right now with the Sooners. You lost Troy Everett. He was expected to kind of be your starter going into 2024. He's out until late in fall camp. And we know how those things can go sometimes in that if you're out late until fall camp, you might not be ready to go for the beginning of the season either, or it might take you several weeks to ramp up. So the Oklahoma Sooners are doing their due diligence to try and find some experience to add to the center competition. Yes, Josh Bates is a talented young prospect, a guy that's got the potential to be a dynamic player at center. He's got the toughness, the physicality, got the right mindset to go in there and battle with those SEC defensive linemen. At the same time, you just don't have a lot of experience. And that's not to say that he can't go in there and be an impactful player in his first year as a starter for the Sooners at center. But if you're feeling like, hey, we need to find a little bit of insurance, or we need to find somebody to add to that competition, well, there's a couple centers that the Oklahoma Sooners are pursuing right now. Branson Hickman is a center from SMU that apparently was on campus at some point recently, but is a guy that's got a lot of experience. He's played almost 2,500 snaps in his collegiate career and he'd be a plug and play starter for you at center, or at least be a guy that could push Josh Bates or gives you that insurance if you're not just quite confident that Bates is ready to go. Again, Josh Bates is really early in his Sooners career. He's only in his second off season. So there's time for him to continue to develop. Don't write that off just yet. I know it's easy to look at your roster and think, hey man, if by their sophomore year, they need to be ready to go, ready to play, and ready to have an impact. But everybody's developmental timeline is different. You look at a guy like Tyler Guyton. I know he changed positions, was new to the position, but he had one good year as a starter for Oklahoma, and that's all it took. And he was a productive guy. Sometimes you just need time to develop, and you don't want to toss guys out because they're not on your timeline or not, taking the steps that you would expect year over year. But just give it time and things will often come together. Another center that the Oklahoma Sooners are pursuing is out of Utah, Ute land. And this is Kolinu'u Faaiu, a center who started 8 games for the Utes last year, has played a little bit, played 500 snaps, but hasn't played a ton. He's not as experienced, but the benefit that comes with a guy like Faaiu is he's got a couple years of eligibility. So if you're looking beyond just 2024 and you're looking to have that, as a part of your center depth chart, center competition, then maybe this is a guy that works out for you. Branson Hickman would kind of be the 1 year rental, so to speak, in that you bring him in for 2024. He plays a lot for you, or he starts for you. And then that gives you one more season to develop a Josh Bates and have him ready to roll in 2025. And you can break Josh Bates in. You can give him more snaps in certain games. You can, whether it's not Arkansas, Maine, you play Maine, that Maine game. Maybe you get a chance to get Josh Bates a full complement of snaps and let him continue to develop. Or you find yourself in some games, hopefully some positive blowouts for the Oklahoma Sooners, where you're able to get these guys off the bench and give them opportunities to get some valuable game reps in there. And I think that could all be really, really beneficial. So trust the process, trust Bill Bedenbaugh. I believe that Oklahoma's got some talented players along their offensive line, but it's going to take some time to develop and develop that continuity and that chemistry and that cohesion that is so important for offensive line play. It's beyond just, okay, who's the best guy? You got to be able to communicate. You got to be able to build chemistry with the rest of the guys on your offensive line and find yourself working as a unit. And sometimes that's, your best 5 guys that work together aren't always, the best 5 guys. Sometimes it something that works better is playing a guy that may not be as good as somebody else, but has better communication or works better in tandem with another guy. So it's going to be fascinating to see how they roll out the offensive line this weekend at the spring game. Right now it's kind of looking like maybe a Jacob Sexton at left tackle, Heath Ozida at left guard, Josh Bates at center, Fabicha Wiwu at right guard, and then Jake Taylor at right tackle. But we know Michael Tarkin is mixed in some at tackle. We know that Jacob Sexton has slid in and played some left guard as well. And so, yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see the offensive line combinations this weekend at the spring game. Spring game time has changed. A lot of inclement weather coming in. We'll talk about that coming up next. Also, a big weekend series for OU softball against Houston. This is a good opportunity for them to continue to move the needle and get back on the right track as far as their offense goes. But we'll talk about a few more players that I'm excited to watch in this week's spring game coming up next here on Locked On Sooners. Game Time is the place to go for last minute tickets. If you're trying to get in on the action for the Oklahoma City Thunder, you got to go to Game Time. They've always got the best seats available and the best last minute prices as well. It's now an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets even faster and easier. Prices on Game Time are always the best. You can get low price guarantee and take the guesswork out of buying Major League Baseball tickets or Oklahoma City Thunder. We're going to go to Game Time. We're going to open the app right now. I like to look at it on my phone because it's just so easy to use. I can get on there. I can search for Oklahoma City Thunder right now, and 421 this Sunday, I got tickets as low as $70 for that Game 1 matchup, and then 424 next Wednesday. Right now, $45 on the Game Time app. So go use promo code Locked On College to get $20 off your first purchase. I love the seat view option from Game Time. You get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy, so you know exactly what you're going to be looking at. Again, take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, but again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. And again, thank you for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. So hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. My buddy Josh, he is out in beautiful Provo, Utah right now calling Oklahoma baseball. Make sure you're tuning in to OU Baseball on the Sooner Sports Radio Network and catch all the action with Josh Helmer on the call for Oklahoma baseball. But spring game time changed. Inclement weather coming in this weekend. 2:30 is now the expected kickoff. George Stoya of Sooner Scoop recommended bring a raincoat, bring your umbrellas, get ready for some potential rain. It's going to be interesting to see how much Oklahoma plays in the rain. Are they going to be willing to potentially risk an injury or two by playing on a wet surface? Is the surface going to be concerning at all for them? Will they just say, hey, this is football, let's just go play, and provide a fun atmosphere and a fun environment by playing in the rain? Again, who knows? It's going to be fun to watch this weekend. The Oklahoma Sooners softball team hosting the Houston Cougars. This is a big opportunity for them to put up some big numbers. Houston's ERA is one of the worst in the nation, one of the worst in the Big 12. They're allowing 8 runs per 7 innings, and they were good offensively through the first part of the season. Had that win over Texas. They've been 2-15 against Big 12 competition since that win over Texas to open Big 12 play, but they're hitting sub 250 as a team. So this should be a walk in the park for the Sooners. But hey, any given Sunday, right? Or any given Friday or Saturday or Sunday in these things. We watched Iowa State beat Oklahoma State in a series this past weekend. So I say it should be a walk in the park, but unless they're locked in and playing Sooner softball like we know they're capable of, it may not be the case on that front. A few more players that, man, I'm really looking forward to seeing on the field for the first time. Reggie Powers. We're big fans of Reggie Powers here on Locked On Sooners. He is an athletic dude, plays with a lot of physicality, plays with great speed. Apparently just blew up the testing numbers whenever they were doing the winter workouts, put up 12 reps on the bench. And that may not sound like a lot, 12 reps to 225, but that's a lot. Jatavian Sanders, the Texas tight end at the NFL Combine, only put up 8 reps. So that just goes to show you the strength that the 17-year-old Reggie Powers has to offer with the Oklahoma Sooners. But I think the whole safety position, Michael Boganowski, that's another kid that has been bringing the Thunder in fall camp and received, not fall camp, spring ball, and received some buzz. Jaden Hardy's another one, but that just goes to show just the kind of depth that you have at safety right now is just absolutely crazy. With some of the injuries at wide receiver, you're down Angelo Anthony, you've been down Jaleel Farouk, Nick Anderson's been a little bit dinged up. I'm excited to see Brennan Thompson. I'm excited to see Jaquays Petaway. How much would their speed be able to factor into a game like this? Who knows? But we know that Jackson Arnold's going to try and take the top off the defense. He's going to try and get the ball down the field. And so it's going to be exciting to see how they use those weapons and that speed as well. Josh mentioned that he was excited to see Bauer Sharp. I'm excited to see Davin Mitchell. I'm really excited to see how he looks because he's got the size, he's got the tools, he's got the skill set. Now it's just a matter of going out there and putting it out on the field and trusting his ability and taking advantage of opportunities because I think he's got a chance to be Oklahoma's tight end too this year. Bauer Sharp looks like he might have tight end 1 locked in, but that tight end 2 I think is up for grabs, and it wouldn't surprise me one bit to see Seth Luttrell and Joe John Finley go to the true freshman and give him opportunities to be a pass catcher in this offense. I don't think that they're going to go in there and ask him to do a ton of run blocking. Obviously, that'll be part of his game and part of the expectations that come with being a tight end too, but they're going to want to really try to take advantage of his offensive skill set, his ability to catch passes in the open field and make plays after the catch. So excited to see that. We talked about Zion Kearney in yesterday's show, but talk about speed guys, and you could throw Zion Raggins and KJ Daniels out there with Brendan Thompson and Jaquays Petaway. You throw all 4 out there at the same time, and good luck trying to cover all that speed. Let's go some 5 wide receiver sets, Seth Luttrell, and put Deion Burks and KJ Daniels and Zion Raggins and Jaquays Petaway and Brendan Thompson out there and really stress the defense. I mean, it's just going to be fun, right? The spring game is supposed to be fun. Let's have some fun with that kind of a offensive lineup. That'd be blazing, legitimately. It'd be an off to the races to see who could get down the field first. But I think those speed guys are really, really going to be fun to watch this weekend. Ivan Carrion is one of those as well. Not a speed guy, but a wide receiver that I'm excited to see how well he moves against college competition and see how much he can use that 6'6" frame to his advantage. Looking forward to seeing how the offensive line looks at this point. I know it's been the biggest question all offseason, and that hasn't changed through spring ball, especially with a few injuries here and there. But I'm excited to see how it looks. Good and bad, for better or for worse. I'm excited to see how all that comes together and how all that looks. Defensively, back on that side of the ball, Caden Woolard, I think he's kind of flown under the radar a little bit because of he's a transfer addition, played for Miami of Ohio. We got a ton of defensive line prospects that came in the 2024 signing class, and you're pretty deep at edge, with Ethan Downs and PJ Adebaware and R. Mason Thomas and Trace Ford and Danny Okoye and Wyatt Gilmore and Nigel Smith, Taylor Wayne. I mean, the list goes on, that you kind of forget about Caden Woolard, but he had 9.5 sacks last year for Miami of Ohio. So this is a guy that could be a very productive player for you. So really intrigued by what he can bring to the field. And then obviously, man, we're looking forward to watching David Stone and Jaden Jackson, the Bash brothers from IMG Academy. How much do they contribute? Is the game going to be too big for them? Probably not the spring game, but what do they look like against Oklahoma's number 1 offensive line? I hope we get to see those matchups because that's going to give us an indication of how much we can expect from them in 2024. Spring game is upon us. Cannot wait to break it all down with you here on Locked On Sooners. So make sure you subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcast. Follow Josh on Twitter at JoshOnRef, myself at John9Williams. The show is at Locked On Sooners. But until next time, my buddy Josh, just enjoying the beautiful scenic views of Provo, Utah. I'm John Williams. Talk to you next week. Well, as we break down spring game, more transfer portal stuff, and recruiting as well here on Locked On Sooners. But until then, Boomer Sooner.